Hello. In this chapter, we are going to explore the foundational system information in QGage, specifically everything related to configuration. This section is essential, as the administrator needs to enter the information that will support the rest of the system's data. Accessing the QGage menu. To begin, we click on QGage in the main menu. Here, we will find several important options. Reminder. The first option is Reminder. By selecting it, you access the same screen that appears when the application starts. If at any point you close the Reminder view and wish to manually view it again, you can do so from here. Manual sending of reminders via email. The next option allows us to manually send reminders via email. This is useful if you want to ensure that the people responsible for the instruments receive all pending notifications. Although the system automatically sends these emails from the server, you can use this function to manually resend them when necessary. How to send the emails. Send all. Click this button to send all pending reminders at once. Send individually. If you prefer to send the reminders one by one, use the button next to each notification. How to cancel the sending. To cancel the sending of a specific email, click Cancel next to the email. If you want to cancel all emails, simply close the view. Role management. In the Roles option, we can manage the different roles that users will have in the system. Roles are essential for establishing permissions and access to different folders or groups of instruments. Create a new role. Click New. Type the name of the role you want to create. Click Save. Modify an existing role. Select the role and click Edit Role to change its name or properties. Delete a role. Click the X icon next to the role you want to delete. A window will appear asking what you want to do with the users associated with that role. Delete, the role and all associated users will be deleted. Transfer, you can transfer the users to another role before deleting the current one. Note, it is recommended to use the transfer option to avoid losing important user information. User management. In the Users section, you can view and manage the complete list of system users. This area works similarly to role management. User properties. Name, the user's name. Email, ensure the email address is correct, as all notifications and alerts are sent via email. Role, the role assigned to the user, which determines their permissions. Status, indicates whether the user is enabled or disabled. Recommendations. Do not delete users. If someone will no longer use the system, it is preferable to disable their account instead of deleting it. This way, their history and associated records are preserved. The user will no longer have access to the system. It prevents the loss of related information, such as responsibilities for instruments or completed calibrations. Change a user's password. Click Change Password and enter the new password. Each user can also change their own password from the main view when logging in. Custom fields. In the Custom tab, you can add additional information for the user using the custom fields you previously defined in the configuration. This is useful for storing extra data relevant to your organization. Configuration view. To access the configuration, we click on the Configuration option. Here, we find various tabs that allow us to customize different aspects of the software. General tab. In the first tab, General, we can adjust basic application options. Online Report Viewer. By enabling this option, reports generated by the system will be displayed directly on the screen, without the need to download them as Excel files. This makes it easier to review reports immediately. Control Dashboards. The Control Dashboards option allows us to access predefined dashboards, such as schedules and studies. Create new dashboards with custom indicators and database queries. Monitor certain indicators, graphs, or data in real time related to measuring instruments, calibration plans, studies, and other necessary indicators. Note: for faster and easier custom dashboard creation, we recommend contacting Willsoft support. Application Style. In Application Style, we can personalize the visual appearance. Change the background color of the application. Modify the primary and secondary text colors. Adjust colors of dividers and other visual elements. This allows adapting the interface to your company's visual identity. Prefixes. The Prefixes tab lets us define the automatic coding of records. Set prefixes for different entities, such as standards, instruments, suppliers, and events. For example, assigning the prefix PAT to standards will generate codes like PAT001, PAT002, and so on. This ensures consistent and organized coding across all records. Acceptance Criteria. In the Acceptance Criteria tab, we can configure the acceptance criteria for R&R studies. For example, O acceptable if the percentage of measurement system variation is below 10%. O conditionally acceptable if it is between 10% and 30%, depending on importance and application. O unacceptable if it exceeds 30%. These criteria are based on MSA recommendations but can be adjusted to your company's needs. Uncertainty criteria. For example, a calibration is considered acceptable if uncertainty is less than a specific percentage of process variation, for example, 10%. Alerts. In the Alerts tab, we define how many days in advance the system will send notifications for scheduled events. For example, if an event is scheduled for July 20th and we set a 3-day notice, we will receive an alert starting from July 17th. RANDR studies, calibrations, and expirations. Email. In Email tab, we configure the server for sending notifications. Whether or not email will be used to send notifications. Whether to display the message before sending it. Whether message editing is allowed. If the server requires authentication. An email address to receive a daily summary report of the notifications. Type of encryption for the server connection. The outgoing server in port. An email account with its password from which the messages will be sent. Important: ensure that the configured email is monitored by the staff responsible for quality or maintenance. Security options. Security options allow us to establish policies to protect system access. Allow user deletion, enable or disable this function. Password change on first login, require new users to change their password. Maximum inactivity time, determine when the session will automatically log out due to inactivity, in minutes. Maximum login attempts, number of failed attempts before locking the user out. Password expiration, set how often passwords must be changed. Password history, number of previous passwords that cannot be reused. Minimum password length, define the minimum number of characters. These measures strengthen security and protect system information. Custom fields. The system allows adding custom fields in different modules. Users, instruments, studies, among others. For example, add a production line field to the user profile. This additional information can be used in reports and analyses. To add a field, navigate to the corresponding section. Enter the field name. The field will be immediately available for use. Custom reports. The Custom Reports option allows creating tailor-made reports. Design reports according to specific requirements. Include custom fields and filters. This functionality will be explored in detail in the chapter dedicated to reports. Records. In the Records tab, we can delete records within a specific date range. Caution: this action is irreversible. Ensure you are certain before proceeding. Import data from Excel. Use the load configuration function. Follow the specified format for a successful import. For assistance, contact technical support. Instrument types. To manage instrument types: 1. Click on the Start tab in the ribbon. 2. Click on the Instrument Types option in the Management group. 3. The list of instrument types will be displayed. 4. We can edit the information of an instrument type. In the General tab, we enter name and description. Classification. This is used to specify what type of radar study can be performed. Variable, if it measures numerical values. Attribute, if it classifies qualitatively. Tooling, used to manage tooling. Other, in case another type of object needs to be managed. Calibration template. In this option, an Excel file can be uploaded as a calibration report template for instruments belonging to the current instrument type. The template can contain formulas to calculate uncertainty, display charts, etc. In the Documents tab, we can upload files of any type with information related to the instrument type, such as calibration procedures, usage procedures, etc. In the Custom tab, we can enter information into the custom fields for the instrument type defined in the configuration. Standards and Masters. To manage the standards: 1. Click on the Home tab in the ribbon. 2. Click on the Standards option in the Management group. The list of standards will be displayed. We can edit the information of a standard. In the General tab, we enter code description. Characteristic being measured on the standard, such as height, weight, etc. Value of the characteristic. Uncertainty of the value. Expiration date of the calibration certificate. Traceability, which is the calibration traceability code of the standard. Unit in which the value of the standard is reported. This information must come from the calibration certificate. Group or folder associated with the standard. Responsible user, the person in charge of the standard. This user receives notifications when the expiration date is approaching. In the Documents tab, we can upload files of any type with information related to the standard, such as an image, usage procedure, etc. In the Custom tab, we can enter information into the custom fields for the standard defined in configuration. Labels. The Labels option allows you to design labels that will later be printed on instruments to indicate, for example, when the next calibration is due or any other relevant information that the instrument needs to display. To manage labels: 1. Click on the Home tab in the ribbon. 2. Click on the Labels option in the Management group. A list of labels will be displayed. You can edit the information about a label. Name, a name to identify the label. Applies to, indicates whether it applies to an instrument or planning. In the case of an instrument, the label is printed by right-clicking on the instrument and selecting the Print Label option. In the case of planning, the label is printed by selecting Print Label in the Planning tab of the instrument's properties. Description of the label. Page layout allows you to set margins, size, position, and the number of labels, as well as the page orientation where the labels will be printed. Label design allows you to design the label. You can add texts, barcodes, QR codes with information about the instrument and/or planning. Suppliers. To manage suppliers: 1. Click on the Home tab in the ribbon. 2. Click on the Suppliers option in the Management group. A list of suppliers will be displayed. You can edit the information of a supplier. In the General tab, you can enter the following: code, supplier identification code. Name, supplier's name. Email, contact email. Contact, name of the contact person. Comments, any comments or observations about the supplier. In the Documents tab, you can upload files of any type with information related to the supplier, such as a quality certificate. In the Custom tab, you can enter information into the supplier's custom fields defined in the configuration. Event types. Event types are used to classify the events that instruments go through. Examples of event types include maintenance, cleaning, verification, etc. To manage event types, click on the Home tab in the ribbon. Click on the Event Types option in the Management group. A list of event types will be displayed. You can edit the information of an event type. In the General tab, you can enter the following: name and description to identify the event type. In the Documents tab, you can upload files of any type related to the event type, such as a maintenance procedure. In the Custom tab, you can enter information into the event type's custom fields defined in configuration. Conclusion. We have reviewed how to manage the foundational system information, focusing on reminders, how to access and manually send notifications; roles, creating, modifying, and deleting roles, as well as assigning permissions; users, managing accounts, recommendations for disabling instead of deleting, and how to handle passwords in custom fields; general settings and security; management of instruments, standards, and suppliers; creation of events and scheduling; customization through fields and reports. These functions are essential for maintaining an efficient and organized system administration. By becoming familiar with these tools, you can ensure that all users have the appropriate permissions, and that the information is managed securely and effectively. We have explored the basic configuration and management functions in QGage. In the next chapter, we will address measurement studies, a key part of the application. Thank you for your attention and see you in the next video.
Hey there, ever try setting up a brand new sound system, but the manual's like written in another language?
Yeah, I've been there.
Well, today's deep dive, we're making sure that doesn't happen with your quality control software.
Oh, good deal.
We're tackling QGage configuration, specifically Chapter 2 of their course. And trust me, there's more to it than clicking next.
It's true. Getting that initial setup right makes all the difference.
Like, it's the foundation of a house.
Right.
Wonky foundation. You're going to have trouble later. So no more messing around. Let's hit the main menu of QGage. What are we unlocking today?
Think of it as our home base. You've got your reminders. It's more than a to-do list, right? You can actually manually send them out, make sure everyone's on top of calibrations.
Okay, so no more oops, I forgot moments. That's already a win. But before we get too deep, let's talk about access, role management, and user management. Why is it so important to set those up carefully?
Imagine this. You wouldn't give everyone in a restaurant access to the cash register. Some people are prepping, others taking orders, and then you have those handling the money. Roles in QGage work the same way, making sure the right people have the right access.
Controlled chaos. I like it.
Yeah.
So how granular can we get with these roles?
You'd be surprised. You can create, you can modify, you can even delete roles.
Oh, okay.
As your team changes, as your needs change. And here's a little tip. If you're ever deleting a role, use the transfer option.
Yeah.
That way, any data associated with that role doesn't vanish. It's just moved to a safe place.
It's like transferring those important files to a new folder before deleting the old one, right?
Exactly.
Always a good habit. Now, speaking of protecting valuable info, is deleting users the same deal?
Actually, there's a smarter way to handle that in QGage. Instead of deleting users, which wipes their history, you can disable their accounts.
Gotcha.
All their past data stays put, but they can't log in anymore.
Like an archive of past projects.
Precisely.
You might not need it every day, but good to have on hand. Now, before we jump into configuration, I got to ask about these custom fields. What's the deal with those?
Ah, you're thinking like a pro already.
Got to stay ahead.
Custom fields are where QGage really lets you personalize things. You need to track employee IDs, departments.
Right.
Anything specific beyond the usual username and password. Custom fields are your answer.
Customization is key. All right, let's crack open this configuration section. Feels like the heart of the system. What's on the general tab that's going to make our lives easier?
Let's talk about streamlining your workflow, starting with the online report viewer. No more downloading endless Excel files just to see your results. Everything's right there in the software.
Music to my ears. And what about these controlled dashboards I've heard whispers about? Are they as cool as they sound?
They can be seriously game changers, like having a personalized control panel for your quality data. You can use the pre-built dashboards for a quick overview, or, and this is what's really cool, design your own from scratch.
Wow. Okay.
And if you're feeling really adventurous with those custom dashboards, Willsoft, the company behind QGage, has got your back.
Oh, nice.
They can help you create some seriously impressive data-driven dashboards.
It's like having a team of data analysts on speed dial. Before I get lost in dashboards, tell me about application style. It sounds dangerously fun.
Who doesn't love a little personalization, right? This is where you can tweak the look and feel of QGage. Change the background color, adjust the font. It's all about making the software your own.
Because staring at spreadsheets all day is a lot more enjoyable when you actually like how they look, right?
Exactly.
Now, I know there's a lot more to configuring QGage than just the general tab. What's next on our list?
Well, to really understand how QGage keeps your quality control processes running, we need to talk about prefixes. It's where it's not as technical as it sounds.
Okay, good.
Think of it as a way to bring order to your data. Imagine you have a bunch of documents all over your desk.
Right.
And you're trying to find that one crucial standard operating procedure.
Oh, yeah. Prefixes are like labeling those documents with clear, consistent names.
Okay, so it's like a filing system for our data.
Exactly.
I can get behind that. But before we move on to acceptance criteria and beyond, let's take a quick pause to gather our thoughts. We've covered a lot of ground already. When we come back, we'll be diving into how QGage helps you manage the details of your quality control process, so stick around. Welcome back. Now that we've got that groundwork laid, let's get into some more specifics in QGage. We left off talking about prefixes to keep our data organized. What comes after that?
So after you've organized your data, you need to make sure it meets your standards.
Of course, yeah.
That's where acceptance criteria comes in. Imagine you're running an analysis. You need to determine if your measurement system is up to snuff. QGage lets you set those acceptance criteria.
Perfect.
Things like acceptable levels of variation or bias, right, based on industry standards or your own specific needs.
So it's like a built-in checklist.
Exactly. And if anything throws up red flags, you can catch it early on. Speaking of catching things early, let's move on to the Alerts tab. This is like having a personal assistant who's laser-focused on deadlines.
I am all about avoiding those last-minute scrambles. Give me an example. How would this work in the real world?
Let's say you have an instrument needs to be calibrated every 6 months.
Right.
With QGage, you can set an alert to notify you, say 2 weeks before that calibration is due. Gives you plenty of time to schedule, avoid delays, and ensure you're audit ready.
Lifesaver. No more panicked calls to the calibration lab. Okay, so alerts keep us ahead of the game, but what about keeping everyone in the loop? I see an email tab here. Tell me more.
Email. The lifeblood of communication, right?
Right.
QGage makes it easy to keep the right people informed. You can customize who gets notified about specific events, like a new calibration record, an upcoming audit.
Okay.
You can even set it up to send a daily summary. It's like a news feed for your quality system.
A news feed I actually want to check. That's a rare find. Okay, we've covered organizing data, setting standards, staying ahead of deadlines, and keeping everyone informed. Can't forget about security.
Absolutely. Security is paramount. Thankfully, QGage takes it seriously as well.
Good, dude.
Head over to the Security Options tab. This is where you control who can access your data and how they can interact with the system.
I'm ready to build some fortress walls. Where do we start?
One of the first lines of defense is setting up those strong password requirements.
Of course, yeah.
QGage lets you define things like minimum length, complexity, no more password 123.
Right.
You can even enforce password expiration, regular refresh.
Low digital hygiene, right.
Exactly.
What about those folks who can't remember their password? Constantly clicking forgot password.
QGage has you covered. You can limit login attempts, prevent those brute force attacks.
Oh, good.
And for those who need to reset, you can tap into password history, prevent them from reusing old passwords.
So no more cycling through the same 3 passwords.
Exactly.
Okay, good, good. Any other security features to have on our radar?
Absolutely. You can control inactivity timeouts, set how long a session can be inactive before automatic logout, prevents unauthorized access.
It's like a safety net for those oops, left my computer unlocked moments.
Exactly.
We are locking this system down. But security isn't just about passwords and access.
You're absolutely right. It's also about managing your data responsibly.
Right.
And that is the perfect segue into our next tab, records.
Ooh, intriguing. What secrets lie within?
Think of this as the central repository for all your QGage data.
Okay.
This is where you manage everything, instrument records, calibration certificates. But, and this is important, deleting records, it's irreversible.
Okay, noted.
Once you hit delete, there's no going back.
Duly noted. So before we go on a deleting spree, tell me more about getting data into the system.
Glad you asked. QGage offers a load configuration function.
Okay.
You can import data, things like Excel spreadsheets.
Oh, very nice.
Huge time saver, especially if you're migrating.
That sounds incredibly useful.
Yeah.
Any pitfalls to be aware of?
Key is to make sure your data is formatted correctly.
Right.
QGage provides guidelines. Plus, their support team is great, always happy to help.
Ooh, that's good.
Always better to double check than end up with a mess.
Solid advice. So we've talked about careful deletion, efficient importing. What else is in this Records tab?
Well, remember those custom fields?
Yeah.
They make a comeback here. Add those extra layers of detail to your records, tracking instruments. You can store serial numbers, purchase dates, even location.
It's like a digital fingerprint for each piece of equipment.
Precisely.
I'm starting to think these custom fields are the unsung heroes.
They're very powerful.
But we're not done, are we? What's next?
Get ready to unleash your inner report building guru.
Oh.
It's time to talk custom reports. This is where you can create tailored reports that fit your needs. Need to analyze calibration data for a specific instrument type over a certain period? QGage has you covered.
This sounds incredibly powerful, but also a bit daunting. Is this where I need a software engineering degree?
Oh, no, don't worry.
Okay, good.
Custom reports are user-friendly.
Okay, good to know.
QGage provides intuitive tools, templates.
Nice.
You don't need to write code or anything,
Okay, good.
but we'll save the in-depth exploration for another episode.
Consider it a teaser for what's to come.
Absolutely.
But before I get lost in the world of data, let's shift gears, talk about something a bit more tangible. Instrument types. What's the scoop on managing those?
Think of instrument types as a way to categorize, organize all those different measuring devices you use.
Right.
You can create categories for calipers, scales, thermometers, you name it.
Okay.
And within each type, you define specific attributes, upload procedures, even link documents.
They're like a digital catalog for your entire inventory. This is going to make my inner organization enthusiast so happy. But I have a feeling our configuration adventure isn't over yet. We've still got a few more tabs to go.
You are right. Our configuration journey continues in part 3. We'll uncover the secrets of standards, masters, labels, and much more. So stay tuned.
Welcome back, Configuration Explorers. We are on the final leg of our QGage deep dive. I feel like we've already assembled like a whole toolbox
We have.
of ways to make this software sync.
Chuckles.
But we can't forget about, the tuning forks, the calibration weights. We got to make sure those measurements are accurate.
That's right. Now we're getting to the heart of it, ensuring accuracy and traceability, and that's where the standards section comes in.
Okay, so this is where we tell QGage about all our reference standards,
Yeah.
the ones that, make sure everything else is measuring up.
Exactly. It's like a digital vault for your most valuable measurement tools. You can input all the details. Traceability code, uncertainty value, even when the next calibration is due.
Peace of mind. And since we're talking traceability, what about those masters I see? Is this where things get, hierarchical?
You're catching on. In some cases, you might have a master standard at the top of the chain, the ultimate reference point, calibrated to the highest level, against which everything else is verified. QGage handles that too.
Next level precision. Okay, we've covered standards, we've talked about masters, making sure those measurements are spot on, but I see labels here. What's the story with those?
Labels might seem like a small detail, but think about it. How frustrating is it to decipher a handwritten tag on a piece of equipment?
Oh, yeah?
QGage lets you create professional labels, print them out, attach them right to your instruments.
So no more squinting at faded ink, trying to figure out if that's a 1 or a 7. I'm already on board. What kind of information can we put on these labels?
Sky's the limit. Instrument ID, next calibration date, handling instructions. You can even put a QR code that, when scanned, pulls up the entire history in QGage.
That's taking instrument tracking into the future. It's like a digital passport, accessible with a quick scan. Okay, so we've talked about how QGage helps us organize our data, set our standards, track our calibrations, even label our instruments. But what about the people and companies we work with?
Excellent point. No quality system is an island. That's why QGage includes a section for managing your suppliers.
Okay, so this is where we keep track of all those important contact details, delivery schedules.
Exactly. You can create detailed profiles for each supplier, contact info, certifications, audit reports. You can even set reminders for contract renewals.
It's like a digital Rolodex, but 1,000 times more powerful. I can see how this is essential for, like, maintaining those relationships. But before we wrap up, there's one last tab. Event types. What's the significance of those?
Event types let you categorize everything that happens to an instrument. Could be a routine calibration, a maintenance check, even an unexpected repair.
It's like building a timeline.
Exactly.
From the moment it arrives in our lab till hopefully not retirement anytime soon.
Chuckles. Right. By categorizing these events, you can start to identify trends, pinpoint potential problems, and make better decisions about when to invest in new equipment.
Talk about closing the loop. We've journeyed through the QGage configuration landscape, from user roles to setting standards, managing suppliers, even the label maker. I'm feeling like a QGage pro.
And you should. We covered a lot, but QGage is user-friendly. Once these basic settings are in place, your quality control processes will be so much smoother.
I'm ready to go forth and configure. But before we say goodbye, any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to experiment. Explore those custom fields. Tailor the system to your needs. If you hit a snag, Willsoft's support team is fantastic.
Good to know they have our back.
It really do.
So to all our listeners out there, happy configuring. A well-configured system is a happy system. Until next time.